Hey folks, this is another vlog. This is season 2, episodes 27 and 28 probably. It could have been great, and message received, and wow, did a lot just happen in these 2 episodes. Mostly this is about Peridot and Peridot's relationship with Steven. As a lot of the last few episodes have been. And it's essentially a 2-parter, with message received pretty much picking up right where it could have been great left off, with Peridot. Peridot takes the communicator and Steven kind of glares and, excuse me, we go from there. That's cool and all, but honestly, the thing that really captured my attention was the map. The map spoke volumes. The map that Peridot calls up when they're looking up the coordinates of the cluster. I actually did something I very rarely do. Normally I just watch the episode straight through. For once, I paused so that I could look at that map in detail, because I immediately noticed the gigantic hole where most of North Asia should be. Gigantic bay. Then I started looking around at other things, and there's all kinds of differences. And I'm really curious about, they have to be intentional, but I'm really curious about whether they're showing us, kind of like the huge chunk taken out of the Earth in Adventure Time, that they're showing us that something very bad happened here, or that this planet is just different. This Earth is just different from ours, because while a lot of them could be explained by, a horrific war far enough in the past to not affect the development of civilization, but recent enough to affect the shapes of the continents. So tens of thousands of years, or even thousands of years. Back to the time of the crystal gems, for instance. Or the war between the crystal gems and the homeworld gems. That's a possibility. On the other hand, some of it, particularly the fact that what in our world is a big chunk of Africa is instead attached to South America. South America has a much further eastward extension, and where Brazil would be in our world, that kind of curve, it extends far more east. Whereas on the African side, the curve that would be... What countries is that? Is that Congo? I think that's where the Congo comes out to the sea. That curve also goes in far further to the east. So South America is bigger and Africa is smaller. Which suggests that, the continental plates are shaped differently. That's a difference that goes back millions of years, not thousands. On the other hand, when Peridot brought up the map of where all the gem homeworld construction was supposed to occur, one of those red dots was exactly in the center of the huge circular crater, the huge circular bay in Russia. And the thing about circular bays and lakes and so forth, circular water formations, is that they're usually craters. Circular lakes usually are indicator that there was a volcano there, possibly still is, that created a crater. And bigger circular formations like bays and stuff usually indicate that somewhere a really freaking long time ago a meteor hit. But that circular bay is by far the biggest on Earth. That suggests possibly that like, either I could see two scenarios. One is that the crystal gems hit that homeworld facility with something huge and caused an enormous amount of damage to it and everything around it for thousands upon thousands of miles. And, as I'm saying this, it occurs to me, I'm not entirely certain where in Russia Tunguska is, but it would be kind of darkly comedic if it were the center of that crater. That's what I initially thought. I actually said it out loud. I was like, oh, wow. The crystal gems, But then the whole thing about Rose considering all life sacred gets pretty dark, if that's true. Like, worth protecting, because what about all the countless amount of death to, animals, plants, humans, organic life of all kinds that would have been caused by that blast. But then they showed what the gems' plan was, to, hollow out the Earth. And I realized that perhaps that structure actually came online and tore a huge chunk out of the Earth and was then destroyed by the crystal gems. So it's actually the homeworld gems that did all that killing. Certainly that seems more in character, but it would add kind of an interesting layer of complexity if it turned out to have been the crystal gems. I think if it did, it would have to turn out to be someone other than rose quartz, because I just can't see, that would make her a hypocrite, and I just can't see them doing that. That's too dark for this show. Frankly, it's too dark for a children's show. But I could see it being that some faction within the crystal gems, back when there were more of them, did this. A faction that was more about defeating Homeworld than about protecting Earth. And it was interesting seeing the contrast between Peridot's reaction and everyone else's reaction to that. Actually, before I get into that, I just want to mention a couple other things I noticed that were different about the map. I can't tell if it was because of just scale and the possibility of detail level, which it can't be that detailed of a map if they're going to show it, between the fact that the files I'm watching aren't full HD and the fact that it's a cartoon. There's a limit to how detailed it could be, so I can't tell if it was a detail or not, but it looks like the Black Sea was a lake that Turkey and, they're both Turkey, but the tiny European part of Turkey and the Asian part of Turkey connect instead of having a narrow strait between them like they do in our world. Japan looked like it was a peninsula rather than a chain of islands. A lot of China was missing too, and also a lot of Western Australia. But in both those cases, it was not a neat circular crater suggesting an impact. So I don't really know what's going on there. And it looked like Florida was an island. There was definitely water between, and a roughly oval-shaped, pointed in the right direction, small landmass, right where Florida should be. Oh, and there was some huge islands in the South Atlantic that aren't there in real life. So, again, it could just be that this Earth is different. But that big circular crater at minimum says to me that the one group of gems or another did something in Northern Asia. But yeah, mostly this episode was about the contrast between Peridot's understanding of the plan and her feelings about the homeworld gems and the diamonds, where she's loyal to them. She believes in them. She believes in a hierarchy in which Some beings are just superior to others, with the diamonds at the top, and an organic life at the bottom. And so she sees nothing wrong with wiping out life on Earth to build a, whatever that thing was that the gems wanted to build. I didn't quite catch that, what exactly its purpose was. But she thought it would be useful. She thought many gems would be created. And this makes the others furious, especially when Peridot says that, they didn't succeed in protecting the Earth. They just delayed its destruction. Now it's going to be destroyed by the cluster. But of course, so many generations have lived and died in that time that they have, in fact, protected countless lives, and she doesn't understand that. She doesn't understand the ephemerality of life on Earth, and the fact that that doesn't detract from the value of life, the fact that it's very short. But, that's because her experience of Earth is limited. And she certainly seems to change her tune in the next part. I love the bit where Stephen refers to the child safety lock as one of Earth's greatest containment technologies. That's pretty hilarious. And, giant robot chase and amethyst copter, or whatever you want to call it. Helethist. No, that sounds terrible. Those are all fun, but the real core of the episode was Peridot telling Yellow Diamond that the cluster is a bad idea, that the Earth shouldn't be destroyed, that there are resources here, and Yellow Diamond utterly shattering Peridot's view of her, that she's not more rational, that she's not some kind of, superior intellect that understands things, that understands all. She's petty. She's vengeful. She wants to destroy the Earth because the Earth pissed her off. And she wants the cluster for, I'm sure we'll eventually find out. It would not surprise me if a future season revealed that the gems were fighting, like the homeworld gems were fighting a war against something much worse, and the cluster was going to be their secret weapon against it. But, whether the show gets that far, or if that's actually what they do, I don't know. Certainly, I suspect after the cluster fails, which I imagine will be, since there's only one episode left of the season, will happen next episode? I imagine that Yellow Diamond is going to be the antagonist for season 3. Probably. Anyway, Peridot's view is shattered. And with it, her understanding of hierarchy is shattered, because she believed that some beings are just better than others. She outright said that the diamonds are just better. And when she discovers that they're not, it really shakes her entire worldview. Her understanding of the universe has been broken. Her sense of the order of things. And that's a traumatic experience. That's actually the essence of traumatic experience. Research has found that trauma is traumatic events are experienced very differently based on how much of a support structure someone has. And that the feeling of being betrayed by things that you thought you could rely upon, the feeling that the structures and systems that you depended on can no longer be depended on, is a major part of making an experience traumatic. So that, for example, if an earthquake occurs, it is far likely to be experienced as traumatic, as having like lasting psychological trauma symptom impact by people who have never experienced an earthquake before and expect the ground to remain solid and where it is. Whereas people who don't have that expectations because they've experienced earthquakes in the past are less likely to experience it as traumatic. It's why, abuse is such a traumatic experience, is because of the element of betrayal and of someone you thought you could rely on not being there for you. Someone you expected to be able to rely on, instead becoming the threat. And that's exactly what Peridot experiences here. And it collapses her into a fetal position. I mean, she's clearly experiencing it as traumatic, and rightly so. Her God has turned her back on her, and her entire understanding of reality has collapsed. Now, like Garnet says, she's a crystal gem whether she likes it or not. She thought of herself as better than them. Now she doesn't know what's better and what's worse, because the thing she thought was best turned out not to be. It turned out that she knows more about Earth and is more rational about what should be done with Earth than Yellow Diamond. And if that's true, then anything could be true. Stephen could be right. The crystal gems could be right. Maybe a pearl isn't worse than an amethyst. Maybe amethyst isn't broken. Maybe Peridot isn't better than them because she was loyal. Maybe their protection of Earth is better. She no longer knows. And in that crisis, in that no longer understanding how the world works, Stephen's already gotten to her. He's going to get to her even more. Because now she no longer has a defense against what is essentially his corruption of her. And I really liked how they depicted that early in the first episode. It'll be great. Or it would have been great. It would have been great. Because when Stephen, invites her to join him in the diamond chair, he's corrupting her in a sense. She has a very rigid concept of right and wrong that's built on very authoritarian lines, and he is encouraging her to thumb her nose at authority. He is encouraging her to not see that chair as being for the diamonds, but to be, dare I say, rational in realizing that there's no point in letting the chair go to waste, since no diamond is going to sit on it anytime soon. Why shouldn't she sit on it? Why respect a rule that doesn't make any sense? Why respect a ruler that doesn't make any sense? Why bother with authority at all when you can just do what makes sense? She keeps talking about how rational she is, but there's nothing rational about blind obedience. She reminds me a lot of those, dudes, and it is usually dudes on the internet who go on about how rational they are while being, wildly irrational, because they believe they're rational, therefore they believe whatever they think is rational, therefore they believe their emotions are rational and everybody else's aren't, therefore they go tromping around all over everyone else's emotions, which is irrational behavior. It's really not possible to be rational until you recognize your own irrationality. And that's what Peridot, I think, is starting to come around to, and what Stephen is helping to, like I said, bit by bit, corrupt her. Not like that she's good and he's corrupting her with evil, but more that she is extremely rigid, and he's corrupting her with chaos and flexibility. He's corrupting her with thinking for herself. Which naturally leads her into further and further into alignment with the crystal gems. One wonders if this is how Rose did it. If this is the path that, say, Pearl followed. It's clearly not, because we've seen the answer. That's clearly not how Garnet came down this path. Except in the sense that Garnet did something that was unacceptable in Gem Society, and therefore had to go become one of the Crystal Gems. She had to flee, and she ended up one of the Crystal Gems. And that's kind of the same thing happening with Peridot, is she did something unacceptable in Gem Society. She told a diamond that they were wrong, and now she has no choice but to be a Crystal Gem. But I can kind of see Pearl's development paralleling it in the sense of, I can see Rose Quartz having more or less corrupted Pearl into being not a servant. And it's obvious that it was never complete, because she still thinks of herself as Rose's knight, which is, her, not quite a servant, but still very much her life is dedicated to Rose, she lives for Rose, so on and so forth. She puts very little value on herself and her own wants and needs. But I think it's very likely that that's still what Rose was working on with her. And that's what created her loyalty to Rose, was that Rose treated her like a person. As she put it, when Connie asked her in Sword to the Sword, did Rose make you feel like nothing? And she said, no, Rose made me feel like everything. That's, I think, what Peridot needs now, and I suspect that's what Steven is going to provide. Is she now feels like she's been abandoned by everything. She no doubt feels pretty worthless right now. I could definitely see Steven stepping in to make her feel better about herself. Anyway, we'll see. Got one episode left for the season. And so what I'm actually going to do, because I've decided, because it is going to be, I'm recording this on August 6th. In 5 days, the season 3 finale airs. So a week from now, which is when I would normally record the next episode, I normally record these once a week, season 3 will be over. So I might as well start it. So next episode, consider this the official announcement, next episode is going to be the last episode of season 2 and the first episode of season 3. I'm going straight into it. When I'm done with season 3, we'll see where season 4 stands. If it's finished, I'll go straight into that. Why not? If not, I'll probably do the second season of Gravity Falls, and then we'll see after that. Anyway, as always, this has been a blast, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!